All right, we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to One Life Visits with me, Dr. Rahia. And we've been talking about the legacy of slavery and how it impacts all of us, and especially people of color. And we've talked about how the transatlantic slave brought so many of us to islands and to the United States. The last time we met, we talked about how there were a young lady was from the South American part of the world by Canada, and she talked about how she felt about this whole thing about slavery and biasness in this country. And she realized that there is biasness, and the only way she realized that was through her husband. Now we are going to look at that old adage, that insult about reparations, and we would give African Americans 40 acres and a mule. So, is that one way for us to be able to acquire wealth as we know it? So, we're going to have a young man here with us today. His name is Bryant Williams, and he is a mortgage banker. And I would like him to, hey, welcome. First, let me welcome him. Hey,
Well, thank
Bryant,
you.
how are you?
I'm
Welcome.
good. I'm good. Thank you for having me on today.
Yes, it was great to have the opportunity. We met at the church, and it was great to have the opportunity to meet you and some of the folks on your team. And some of the things that you talked to me about was really astounding. And I thought that it would be great for our listeners and viewers to hear from your end of this. Is there a possibility for African Americans to become financially free or independent as a result of acquisition of land? May not necessarily be that 40 acres, but what would you
Right,
say?
right. Well, personally, I think that the acquisition of land is a very good asset. It's kind of like commodities, just like any other commodity, like dealing with gold or silver. Um, Land retains value very well. So right now, as you probably heard about the real estate market, um, property values are going up. They're going up extremely fast. They are. So if you are able to get like just raw land or something like that, we have loans out there. You are able to make those purchases and just buy raw land. Now, is that a way of establishing wealth? Yes, it is because it's more long term, not immediate. So if you do go out and you buy land, um, I don't know about, I don't know if we will ever get the 40 acres or anything like that, but I think that is a different strategy depending on what your strategy is, your long-term strategy, to get to be financially free. I think that is a great investment.
So when you think about our current time period, where certainly people of color, especially those of African descent, are there's a war upon us. How can we put ourselves in a position to acquire, say, maybe a quarter of an acre of land or so? How can we do that?
So it's actually a lot easier than a lot of people might think.
Okay.
So you'd want to, the first thing is like anything else, you want to go out and actually let me back up. It starts with building your credit. Your first thing that anything that you want to do, and I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have, because a lot of us aren't taught um, the importance of credit, you know,
Yes.
and it's very important. Unfortunately, I learned the importance of credit at a later age in life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the thing is, now I know. So I do try and tell people before you make any move, make the move on in yourself. Invest in your credit, invest in your savings. Make sure you have funds that you can actually afford because you have clothing costs and those type of things. your credit score is the first thing that, your credit score is going to be the first thing as a lender that we
Mm,
look at.
okay, so that number is important. So that number for purchase of land and that sort or properties is important because that's what
Correct.
okay, that's what you guys look at.
Now
Excellent.
the higher the now what the number is what we're going to look at. Now, whatever the number is going to determine what kind of conversation we have.
Okay. Okay. And so would you see this as something that is troubling and as a result of this legacy of slavery to keep an endeavor from the Caucasians to keep the African Americans from becoming wealthy? Do you think that this is something that has been systematic in our culture today?
I can't talk for the past because I can tell you like because I could sit here and I could say I could say one thing and then turn back around and be like, well, and this is why my kids won't be able to do it. And when all actuality, I think it's like anything else. It's like saying that we're not able to drive. If you don't teach your child how to drive, then when they get 21, 22 and they can't drive, whose fault is it? So
Mhm.
I put it like this. I've learned the importance of credit.
Okay.
I teach my son the importance of credit.
Okay.
And I've been going to his school, and it's not just African Americans or whites or Hispanic or anybody. I go in there and I teach the whole class about credit.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I teach the whole class about credit. I still now on a one-on-one, my son and I we have those talks. I teach him how to save. I teach him about credit. And how to spend his money and when he should be spending his money.
Okay, that's important. All right. Okay. So, how do you think that impacts the African Americans? Because that's primarily
Mhm.
what it's about. How do you think the lack of that knowledge has impacted African Americans today, then?
I think that's very impactful because of the simple fact is that, like I say, it's you don't know what you don't know, you know.
Mm,
Um, and when and I be honest with you, like um, when I was a branch manager at a bank over, and this is the difference, having been a branch manager in East Tampa. I was educating a lot more people about credit than I was when I moved out to when I was a branch manager over in Bell Shoals, a more established area, or when I go to Carrollwood. Those,
okay.
the knowledge of credit was very different. It was very different. We didn't have when over in East Tampa, they didn't. A lot more people weren't aware as much of as credit. They weren't aware of their credit. If I ask you, what's your credit score? Oh, I don't know. I think it should be good. And I'm like, hey, well, what do you consider good? Oh,
Right.
I should be a 600 by now. Like 600, that's
So
not
yeah, they didn't even have an idea of what the entire band would be from the bottom
correct.
to the top. Oh, wow.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So it's I think the opportunity is it's there, and
Hmm.
I think it's as a people we have to go out and we have to come back and educate other people and let them know. I'm always available to talk to anybody about credit. I go out and I just start talking to people anyways about credit.
Excellent.
I go to a restaurant and sit at the bar, and then like I hear somebody talking, I'm like, well, what's your credit look like? And they're looking at me like I'm retarded because I
Right.
just put in their conversation. And I'm like, well, what's your credit look like? You said you want to do this, you want to do that. Okay. How's your credit?
Yes.
And that's the only way you're going to be able to even start that dream or that journey
Acquisition.
that you're looking to do.
So, okay, that's good. So you said initially, look at their credits. So how would they increase their credit rating? What are some of the things, 3 or 4 things you would suggest an individual with say 580 or 600? What should they do?
The first thing I would tell you, my top three things to
Yeah.
increase your credit, I would tell you this: it's not always about paying off your. Well, let me back up. The get positive credit.
Yes.
You can have negative things on your credit, and you can pay all that off, but it doesn't matter if you don't put anything positive on there. So whether you go get a secured credit card, whether you go get something, because a lot of our mistakes is we think that cash is king, and it's not. Because growing up, I know you were the same way. I grew up thinking, all I heard is if you ain't got cash, you can't buy cash, don't buy it. And under that philosophy, if you think about it, under that philosophy, you will never own a home until you're like in your 60s or 70s. Because if you're trying to pay cash for a $300,000-$400,000 house, a newlywed couple, a young couple in their 20s will never be able to afford that. So I would tell you, just start utilizing your credit. Keep low balances. Keep low balances on your credit and make your payments on time. Those 3 things.
Okay. And then what? So now I'm 21 and I understand that I'm trying to better my life. I'm only making $12 an hour. I have 580, 600 credit score. I'm an African American male. What do I don't have any kids. What do I do? So I'm working on my credit. I got a little credit card to a nice little store, and I'm making I'm paying. I might get something every couple of months, and I pay it off immediately.
Oh, okay. So
now,
that's that. I'm glad you said that. So 2 things. One, the department store credit cards aren't really what you want to be using to build your credit. Go to your bank and get a secured credit card. That's probably the best thing, because a secured credit card is going to give you more bang for your buck when it comes to doing credit. Okay.
All right. So I tried that, and this is like my first real job. And the only thing that I was able to get was this credit. So I'll go to the bank, but they denied me because I don't have a background, a good credit background.
Well, and that's why I say secured, because secured credit card, unless you typically, a lot of people you get approved for those, because the secured credit card is where you're using a savings account as collateral for your credit.
Very good. Okay. Way to explain that. Yes.
Yeah, you're going to use that as collateral for your credit. You're going to we'll say $500. Heck, you could get them at $300. You get one at $300. They take the $300, they put it in a savings account, and then you get a credit card with a credit limit of $300. You do the mistake that a lot of people make is they think, well, I have $300 that I prepaid on this card. It's not a prepaid card. Right. That $300 they're holding is $300 just to say, hey, if you max this credit card out and you don't pay us a dime, at least we know we get our $300 back.
That's right. Thank you. That's what secured means, folks. That's what secured. Yes. That's
what that's for. Now, the second thing that you said on that about, you're paying it off. So the thing, if you want to get utilization credit for your credit card, for using your credit, you don't want to pay that balance off right after you use it. Because if you go buy something today and you pay it off tomorrow, it never reported on your credit report that you use your card, because the credit card only reports to the credit agency once a month.
Gotcha.
So if you're paying it off immediately, well, it's just going to look like you never used that credit card. Yeah, you got a credit limit and a credit card, but it's at a zero balance. And you're like, no, it's not. I used it and paid it off. By the time you pay it off, so what I tell people is, I'm like, leave a small balance. Whether if you got a $300 credit card, leave a $20 balance on it, and then just, whether you use it for gas, just use it for gas, because at least that way you're going to have a balance on it, and it'll report to the bureau that you're using it, because 30% of your score is on usage.
30%, folks. You hear that? So one of the issues and one of the concerns that comes from this, especially with young folks and even folks that are not used to having a credit card, that $20 becomes 200, becomes 2,000.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the issues with that is encouraging individuals on the flip side to learn how to save in order to get, because there are a few people, like you just said, well, banks and that sort, they look at your credit score. So if you don't have a credit score at all, but I have $80,000 and I want to pay on this house that's $160,000, I want that house, what would happen to me? Bryant Williams, what would happen? I saved up $60,000 or $80,000 and that house is only $160,000. Come on, I don't want a credit card because cash is king.
You'd have to find out that that king got overthrown by credit a while back. Okay. Yes. Yeah, because cash is no longer king anymore. It got overthrown. I will tell you, and the unfortunate part is, and I've seen it, you know, the first thing, like, you can't even do an application without a credit score.
Yeah.
You know, it's not even going to take you anywhere, because the first thing we do is we see the application, and I'll tell you right now, like I said, it's going to determine, you need a credit score. You need a credit score to even talk to me.
Yeah.
Your credit score, now, whatever your score is, that's going to determine what our conversation is going to be about. Okay. I mean, and it's black and white. It's that simple. You know, I could like you. I could.
Right. Yes, I hear you.
However, the days of doing business with a handshake is gone.
Yes, sir.
That's over. That's gone. That's gone. That's done and over with. So now it's about being able to. You're in all honesty, and I don't want to make make anybody feel less than anything, but I break it down just how when I teach the kids. You know, when I go in and I talk to the kids about credit at the schools, you know, the one thing that I tell them, I say, hey, look, you know, I play a game with them. And the game, and one of the games is that I get three of them in front of the class. And then I'll say, hey, you know, I tell one of them, ask his friend if he could borrow $5. And then I give him $5. And I say, well, now when a guy, and then I tell the other kid, I say, hey, well, ask him for your money back. And then the kid would be like, can I get my money back? And then the other kid's like, well, I don't have it. He's like, well, you said you'll have my money. You don't have it. Well, I don't have it. Now, the other kid that's standing right there, I say, now go ask him for $10. And then see what the kid says. And all the kids are like, no, I'm not going to give him $10. Like, well, why aren't you going to give him $10? Well, because he didn't pay him back. He didn't pay him his $5 back. So why would I give him $10?
Yeah.
And it's like, ding, ding, ding. That's basically the story that the credit report is saying.
Yeah, and that's a small picture. The big picture. Yes.
That's a small scale, but you know, the unfortunate part is it really is that simple. You know, the concept is really that simple.
So then, can you just for a moment? I want you to think about. Perhaps you're familiar with this again, getting back to, because that's what this segment, these series is referring to, this legacy of slavery. Can you for a minute think about how that process has impacted groups of people financially today? You know, we've had situations where there are cities where African Americans have done well on their own, and they've been burned down by their Caucasian contemporaries. So can you think about today, seriously now, how has that piece impacted African Americans in terms of finances today?
I think so. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. You know, it's one of those things where The unfortunate part is our mental state is automatically, I
Mm,
can't do it because of this. And mentally we're holding ourselves back.
yes.
And then on the education part, just like I said before, with the education piece, we don't know what we don't know until we learn, until
Yes.
we see somebody else do it. So and that's the unfortunate part. Um, Now the other side of the story is, and I say this because I've seen it, and a lot of people,
Mm,
some people get mad when I say it, but it's the truth. We use it as a crutch, you know.
okay. As a
We
reason not to do.
as a reason not to do it because you tell people that, like, I educate, I'll be talking to some people, and I mean it got to the point where I've had to walk away from some people because
Yeah.
you're telling me what your goal is, and I'm telling you what you need to do to accomplish it, but you're giving me a reason of something that happened in the past that didn't happen to you,
Mm-hmm.
but you just heard about it, and that's the reason why you're not going to move forward. And it's
Mm,
like, I understand, and I'm not saying you should forget the past. What I'm saying is right now you have an opportunity to build on the opportunity that in the past they didn't have. So
mm,
why are you going to use that not to take care? They fought for that. People fought and died for you to have this opportunity now, and now you're saying you can't do it for whatever reason. No,
mm-hmm.
and then when you sit down and you have a conversation, it's your mind is being mentally. It's your mental. It's like you're defeating yourself up front. And I'm
Mm,
not saying that. I'm not saying I'm not blind and I'm not oblivious to some of the things that go on. But what I
yeah.
am saying is, if you come to the table with nothing, you're going to leave with absolutely nothing.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, I have enjoyed speaking with you because, especially because you have that information that everyone needs about finances. That's really critical. And you said something that I thought was really important, that the younger individuals are. You speak to young folks,
Mhm.
and so they need to start learning that. And I think that, or I'm familiar with a lot of African Americans that don't get that opportunity because their parents didn't know.
Right.
And so they didn't get that lesson of how to save, and those little things that would put them, by the time they're 18, in another category, literally another category.
Yeah.
So yeah, right. So I think starting earlier, or I know starting earlier with this conversation with our kids is important. And even
Yep.
though, like you were saying, even though we know that slavery did happen, we don't have to waller in it necessarily. We need to be aware, but we
Hmm.
don't have to waller, and we don't have to use that as a crutch. And that's what you were saying
Exactly.
as well.
Exactly.
Yes, I get it.
Exactly. Now,
Mhm.
I will tell you one thing. One thing I do want to say is, if you are in a situation, because and this is what I do. I did with my nieces, and
Okay.
I do with my son. If you're in a situation and you've tackled that credit battle, and now you're good, and your kids are coming up on 18, 19, they're getting ready for school. you know if you have credit cards, I'm not saying give your 18-year-old a credit card,
Yeah.
but put them on your credit card as an authorized signer.
Okay.
You put them on your credit card as an authorized signer, so now they're getting this credit established off of what you're doing anyway. You don't have to give them the credit card. Just put them on as an
Okay.
authorized signer to help build their credit.
Okay. Oh, that's very good. Now the
That's what
kids,
I did
the
with both of my girls
doesn't
that are
get
in
it.
college.
Okay, and then the kids are given this lesson. The family gives the children a lesson about this.
Hmm.
Yes. Okay.
Like I said,
So
you
they
don't necessarily have to give them the card,
that's good.
but you can put them on as an authorized signer. And since you're making your payments, you're the one using the card. Just make sure that
Yeah.
you keep that card in good standing, and then that helps them establish credit. Because once they get in front of me at a bank, and then they're trying
Hmm.
to get their own credit card,
Right.
um, they're going to get a better type of credit card, because
Okay.
they're already listed as authorized signer on another one in good standings, and now they have a credit score.
Excellent. Well, I have your number, 813 381-0329 for our viewers. Is that how they can reach you?
That is the best way to reach me.
All right. Well, again, I hope this is not the last time we talk. This has been an excellent conversation with you. I appreciate it. And for all those viewers out there, I hope you continue to tune in to One Life Visits. Subscribe to this channel. You can tweet me. You can hit me up at my Instagram at 1T for Life. Just keep tuning in. We will continue our discussion and our visits on the legacy of slavery.